It's official. SpaceX has launched Starlink for RVs. So just what is that? Hi, I'm Chris with the Mobile Internet Resource Center, here to give you yet another update on SpaceX's Starlink, and this one is kind of significant news. SpaceX is now officially, right on the top of their front page, going after the RV market with Starlink for RVs. So this is a whole new tier of service that you can get, intended specifically for the RV market. So just what is it? Is this something new, something great, something wonderful, different hardware? Actually, it's not much changed at all. Earlier this month we covered Starlink portability coming out. This was a new feature that SpaceX enabled that for $25 extra a month, you could take residential Starlink service, bringing the price from $110 to $135. You could then enable portability and take your residential service on the go with you. Well, Starlink for RVs is basically that from the get-go. So it's $135 a month, and you do not need a fixed residential address. So you can order Starlink for RVs right now. They have availability, no wait list, no matter where you are in the country. That is kind of the big selling point. No wait list. It works. You can take it and go immediately, and you do not need residential service. Then the other big selling point of Starlink for RVs is, because they know some RVers don't RV full time, is you can actually pause service when you don't need it. So if you want to get Starlink for your summer trip, buy the dishy for $5.99, take it out on the road with you for the summer, and then turn off service, pause service when you are done with it. So that's actually some pretty exciting features. But there are a few catches to keep in mind. First off, the simple one, the around the pausing feature. That's great to have. It's something that we wish SpaceX would enable for all Starlink accounts, but service is billed by the month. So if you take Starlink out for a week and you only use it for a week, you still pay for that entire month of service once you hit pause. The pause doesn't take effect until the end of your current billing month. Now, when it's time for you to resume service and you're going back out on a trip, you can activate it at any time. So, there is some pretty good flexibility there. There is no activation or pause fees. It's just do it when you want, but it is billed per month. There is no prorated discounts. Now, the other kind of bigger issue with this is, because you don't have a fixed residential service address, SpaceX is making it very clear that Starlink for RVs is running at a lower priority on the Starlink network than regular Starlink customers. Particularly if you are in areas that are on the Starlink availability map marked as waitlisted. Those areas are potentially, they've actually put out new performance estimates, service potentially might just be as low as 5 megabits per second download. That would have been kind of slow back in the 3G era. So the SpaceX is acknowledging that congestion could be an issue. And Starlink for RVs, you're always at kind of the low priority on the SpaceX network, no matter where you go. Now, Starlink residential service plus portability, you at least have your home address, you have priority guaranteed service there. You'll have much higher priority on the SpaceX network than a Starlink RVer will passing through. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Starlink, when you're trying to decide between Starlink for RVs or Starlink residential plus portability, they cost the same, $135 a month, but Starlink for residential with portability, you can still change your residential service address as you desire. So if you can find areas with availability, you can, particularly if you're going someplace for a season, you're staying a month or 2 or 3, you can move your home address there and have priority service. Keep that in mind when you're trying to weigh choosing RV or portability. Now, one other thing that a lot of people are going to jump to mind is Starlink for RVs. Does that mean I can use it in my RV while underway? And no, not yet. SpaceX is making it very, very clear that a Starlink is not yet certified, endorsed, or allowed for in-motion usage. And even though some people have had some good luck using it that way, SpaceX is double reiterating that this will void your warranty, and in the terms of service they say this is actually potentially grounds for canceling your service. So in-motion usage is something they are working on and will be enabled when the time is right. So stay tuned for news on that. But right now, Starlink for your RV is for your RV when it is stopped. Now, one other question we're getting is, do you need an RV to get Starlink for RVs? And the answer is no. SpaceX is not sending out an RV inspector to make sure you're going to use this in your RV. And in fact, they're even encouraging people who are in areas where Starlink service is currently waitlisted, saying, hey, if you want to get Starlink now and you don't want to wait until you get priority service, just sign up for Starlink for RVs and use it at your house, and you'll get lower priority service than your neighbors perhaps, but at least you have Starlink. So now, anybody can order Starlink without having to find a valid address or without waiting for service to be enabled in a particular area. So that is pretty exciting. And, this applies to boaters too. It's, if you want to use Starlink while you're at dock, and maybe at anchor is probably not too much motion. So, Starlink is a viable option for boaters, at least, on the main parts of the continental United States. So this is pretty exciting. We're still tracking all the future upcoming rollouts of Starlink into broader and broader places. Another good question. Can you change your service between Starlink for RVs and Starlink Residential or Starlink Residential plus portability? And the answer is right now, no. SpaceX does not have any provisions set up to do that. If you already have Starlink service, you cannot convert that to Starlink for RVs. And if you start with Starlink for RVs, you cannot convert that to Starlink Residential service. This means if you want a different type of service, you actually have to order a whole new line of service, a whole new dishy, everything else. But SpaceX support has apparently already been answering people's questions on this, saying that is something they are working on enabling. So hopefully that's not too far down the line, but for the moment, you are locked into whatever type of service you get. So this is going to be kind of, the wait and see game, is just to see how well SpaceX can manage the congestion on their network, particularly as they're inviting in a whole new wave of customers who, want Starlink for their RVs, are going to be hitting the road traveling this summer, and popular areas might start to slow down, or, maybe SpaceX will be able to keep ahead of the curve and keep the performance up. We're going to be waiting, watching, and eager to see how this all works out. It's definitely exciting to see this becoming not just a kind of a way that so many of us nomads have been working around the corners, but now officially endorsed by SpaceX. It's exciting times, and there's SpaceX for RVs is ready for your summer trips if you want to go embrace it. And if you want to learn more about all these trade-offs and the potentials, the gotchas using Starlink on the road, do come over to the Mobile Internet Resource Center. We're updating our in-depth, completely free Starlink guide at mobileinternetinfo.com/Starlink. You can follow along there and just see, we update it all the time because SpaceX is changing things so fast. Anyway, that's the latest.
These videos are brought to you by our premium members, our mobile internet aficionados. They make it possible for us to track this news and create these videos. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, or better yet, consider becoming a member yourself.